If you are hearing this, your time is shorter than you think. I do not speak to frighten you. I speak because what you assume is distant is already at your door. You believe you have decades, years, endless tomorrows to decide what matters. But I see what you cannot. From where I stand, your final breath has already been drawn. Your last moment has already passed. And now, in the stillness after everything, I ask you, what did you bring with you? You spent your life building. You accumulated, planned, protected, and expanded. You built careers that demanded your best hours. You chased wealth that consumed your peace. You constructed identities that required constant maintenance. You built empires of reputation, walls of security, towers of success. And you believed these things defined you. You believed they would last. But I tell you now, none of it crossed the threshold. The life you spent decades building stayed behind. Every title, every possession, every achievement you clung to remained in a world that no longer holds you. You thought you were building a legacy, but you were building with materials that could not survive eternity. The wood, the hay, the stubble. It all burned away the moment you stepped beyond time. And what remained? Not your resume, not your bank account, not your carefully crafted image. What remained were the things you ignored, the patience you refused to develop, the humility you resisted because it felt like weakness, the forgiveness you withheld because you believed you deserved justice, the quietness you avoided because it made you face yourself, the surrender you rejected because you wanted control. These are what followed you, not the life you built, but the character you neglected. I tried to show you. I sent delays to teach you patience, but you called them obstacles. I allowed loss to teach you humility, but you called it unfairness. I placed people in your path to teach you forgiveness, but you called them enemies. I gave you silence to teach you surrender, but you filled it with noise. You did not want to learn. You wanted to arrive. You wanted success without refinement, wealth without wisdom, influence without integrity. And so you built a life that could not enter eternity. You believed the purpose of your existence was achievement. You measured your days by productivity. You judged your worth by how much you accumulated. And when I tried to interrupt that pattern, when I closed doors, when I withheld what you begged for, you assumed I was withholding blessing, but I was withholding destruction, because the blessing you wanted would have buried you. The success you chased would have crushed your soul. The wealth you pursued would have become your prison. I did not delay your plans because I was testing your patience. I delayed them because I was saving your eternity, but you did not see it. You saw only what you did not have. You spent your life resenting what was missing instead of becoming who you needed to be. And now, standing where you are, you see the truth. The career that consumed you is forgotten. The money that motivated you stayed behind. The reputation that defined you dissolved the moment you left. None of it mattered, not because those things were evil, but because they were temporary. And you treated temporary things as if they were eternal. You ignored eternal things as if they were optional. I gave you relationships, and you used them for networking. I gave you time, and you spent it chasing more time. I gave you breath, and you used it to complain. I gave you trials, and you used them to justify bitterness. I gave you silence, and you filled it with distraction. You were so busy building the life you wanted that you never noticed I was building you for eternity. And the materials I needed, patience, humility, forgiveness, surrender, you rejected them all. You called patience weakness. You called humility smallness. You called forgiveness betrayal. You called surrender defeat. And now you see that patience was strength, humility was greatness, forgiveness was freedom, and surrender was victory. But the lesson comes too late. You stand in eternity, and the account is closed. There is no going back, no second attempt, no opportunity to rebuild. What you are now is what you brought. What you ignored then is what you face now. And you realize with a clarity that cannot be escaped that the life you built did not matter. Only the soul you ignored did. This is not a warning for tomorrow. Tomorrow does not exist where you are now. This is the reality you face in the stillness beyond time. The weight you feel is not regret. It is the eternal consequence of what you chose to value. You thought eternity would wait for your convenience. You thought death was a distant concept, a problem for future you to consider, but eternity does not wait. It does not negotiate. It simply is. And when you stepped into it, it did not ask what you achieved. It asked what you became. Did you become patient when everything in you wanted to rush? Did you become humble when everything in you wanted to be seen? Did you become forgiving when everything in you wanted revenge? Did you become surrendered when everything in you wanted control? These were the questions that mattered. And in the noise of your ambitions, you never heard them. I placed them before you in 1,000 moments, in the delay that made you angry, in the loss that made you bitter, in the betrayal that made you close your heart, in the silence that made you uncomfortable. Every moment was an invitation to become, but you wanted to achieve instead. You wanted results, not transformation. You wanted comfort, not character. And so you built a life on sand, and when the threshold came, it all washed away. Nothing remained but the truth you spent your life avoiding, that you were not building a life. You were building an account. Every choice, every response, every moment of patience or pride, humility or arrogance, forgiveness or bitterness, it was all being recorded, not by a system that could be manipulated, not by a standard that could be negotiated, but by the eternal nature of reality itself. You cannot bring pride into eternity. You cannot bring bitterness into eternity. You cannot bring unforgiveness into eternity. These things cannot survive where you are now. And if they defined you, if they became you, then you cannot survive either. The life you built was not meant to come with you, but the soul you ignored was meant to be all that remained. And now, in the silence beyond all distraction, you see it clearly. The truth you resisted, the reality you avoided, the eternity you dismissed as distant. It is here. It is now. It is final. And the life you built on earth, the one you gave everything to protect, the one you sacrificed your peace, your integrity, your relationships, your very soul to maintain, it did not come with you. But what you ignored, the patience, the humility, the forgiveness, the surrender, that is all that remains. And if you ignored it completely, if you rejected every opportunity to develop it, then what remains is nothing, not because I withheld eternity from you, but because you withheld yourself from eternity. This is the weight of what you chose. This is the reality of what you valued. And there is no reversal, no negotiation, no appeal. The account is closed. The life is finished. And what you brought is all you have forever. This is not cruelty. This is consequence. The natural result of treating eternal matters as optional and temporary things as ultimate. You were given a lifetime to choose. Every moment was an opportunity. Every delay was mercy. Every closed door was protection. Every loss was invitation. But you saw them all as obstacles to the life you wanted. And so you fought against the very process that was meant to prepare you. You resisted the refinement that would have saved you. You rejected the transformation that would have carried you into eternity intact. And now you stand in the aftermath, not of what was done to you, but of what you chose. I gave you everything you needed: time to grow, trials to refine, silence to hear, relationships to practice love, delays to develop patience, losses to cultivate humility, betrayals to learn forgiveness. I gave you every tool required to become someone who could carry eternity, but you wanted to build a life, not become a soul. And now the life you built is gone. And the soul you neglected is all that remains. This is the eternal truth you cannot escape. The life you built will not come with you, but what you ignored will. And if what you ignored was everything that mattered, then you step into eternity empty. Not because eternity rejected you, but because you rejected what eternity required. There is no time left to change it, no opportunity to go back and choose differently. The moment has passed, the door has closed, and you are standing in the result of every choice you made, every priority you set, every value you lived by. This is not the future. This is not a possibility. From the view of eternity, this is already your reality. You are already standing in the consequences. You are already facing what you ignored. And the life you spent decades building is already dust. What remains is only what was eternal. And the question that burns in the silence is this: what did you make eternal? Your patience or your pride? Your humility or your reputation, your forgiveness or your grudges, your surrender or your control, whatever you fed, whatever you valued, whatever you protected, that is what remains. And it will define your eternity. Not because of arbitrary rules, but because eternity can only hold what is eternal. And if you spent your life building with temporary materials, you will arrive with nothing. This is the truth you were meant to understand before the door closed. This is the reality I tried to show you in every delay, every loss, every moment of discomfort. But you did not want truth, you wanted comfort. And now comfort is gone, and truth is all that remains. And the weight of it is unbearable. Because you see now what I saw all along, that the life you were building could never last, that the things you valued could never cross the threshold, that the identity you protected could never survive eternity. It was always going to stay behind. The only question was whether you would develop something that could come with you, and the answer to that question is now final. It cannot be changed. It cannot be undone. You are standing in the result. And what you ignored, the patience you refused, the humility you resisted, the forgiveness you withheld, the surrender you rejected, these are the only things that mattered. And if you ignored them, you ignored everything. The life you built is gone. And what you ignored is all that remains. Do not misunderstand what I am saying. I am not speaking to those still walking in time. I am speaking to you who have crossed the threshold, you who now stand in the unchangeable present of eternity, you who can no longer say tomorrow, next year, someday. For you, time has collapsed, and in the absence of time, only reality remains. You spent years believing that success would bring you peace. You thought achievement would make you whole. You chased milestones as if they were meaning itself. Each promotion, each recognition, each accumulation of wealth or influence, you believed these were proof of your value. But now you see they were simply measurements of motion. You were moving, yes, but not toward anything that could last. You were running in circles, building monuments to yourself that required constant maintenance. The moment you stopped defending them, they crumbled. And you realize now that you spent your entire life maintaining structures that were always destined to fall. I tried to interrupt this cycle. I sent you moments of stillness where you could have stopped and asked, why am I building this? For whom am I performing? What will remain when my strength is gone? But you interpreted stillness as stagnation. You saw silence as emptiness. You feared the questions because you suspected the answers would require change. And change felt like loss. So you kept building, kept performing, kept running until you could not run anymore, until time itself ended and left you standing in the ruins of everything you thought mattered. And now you see the truth that terrifies. It was not that you built the wrong things. It is that you built only things. You treated your life like a construction project. You measured success by what you could see, touch, show to others. But I was never asking you to build. I was asking you to become, to develop patience in the waiting, to cultivate humility in the success, to choose forgiveness in the betrayal, to practice surrender in the chaos. These are not things you build. These are things you become. And becoming requires something you never wanted to give. It requires you to let go, to stop controlling, to stop defending, to stop proving. It requires you to trust that I see what you cannot, that I know what you need, that I am working in ways that do not require your understanding or approval. But you could not release control. You believed that if you were not managing every detail, everything would fall apart. And so you held tightly to your plans, your reputation, your image, your success. You held so tightly that your hands became fists. And in clenched fists, nothing eternal can be held. I sent you losses to open your hands. I allowed failure to show you that your worth was not in your performance. I permitted betrayal to reveal that your identity was not in others' opinions. I gave you silence to teach you that your peace could not come from noise. But you saw every loss as an attack, every failure as proof of your inadequacy, every betrayal as justification for closing your heart, every silence as evidence that I had abandoned you. You interpreted every mercy as punishment, and so you hardened. You built walls instead of becoming wise. You developed defenses instead of depth. You protected your image instead of your soul. And the life you built became a fortress with nothing inside. Now you stand in eternity, and the fortress has dissolved. The walls that kept others out also kept you trapped. The defenses that protected your reputation also prevented your transformation. The image you maintained so carefully was just a mask, and now the mask is gone, and what remains is what you truly became. Not what you presented, not what you pretended, but what you were in the moments when no one was watching. The bitterness you nursed in secret, the pride you justified in your thoughts, the unforgiveness you held as if it were your right, the control you gripped as if it were your security. These are what followed you, not because I punished you, but because they became you. You fed them, you protected them, you justified them, and what you feed becomes part of you. You thought you were building a life of success, but you were actually constructing a soul of stone, hard, cold, unyielding. And stone cannot survive eternity. It cracks under the weight of forever. You needed to become soft, not weak, but surrendered, not broken, but humble, not defeated, but at peace with not being in control. I tried to teach you this through every circumstance you called a setback. Every door I closed was an invitation to trust. Every person I removed was a chance to forgive. Every dream I delayed was an opportunity to develop patience. But you saw only what you lost. You never saw what you could have gained. And so you spent your life mourning what you did not have instead of becoming who you needed to be. You believed that eternity was a destination you would reach someday, a far-off place you would worry about later. But eternity is not a destination, it is a dimension. And every moment you lived, you were either aligning with it or resisting it. Every choice either moved you toward eternal reality or deeper into temporary illusion. And now that time has ended, the illusion has shattered. What remains is only what was real, what was eternal. And if you spent your life investing in illusion, you arrive in eternity bankrupt. I gave you a lifetime to invest, not in buildings or bank accounts or reputations, but in eternal things, love that forgives, humility that serves, patience that trusts, surrender that rests. These are the currencies of eternity, and they can only be developed in time. You cannot create patience in eternity. There is no waiting in forever. You cannot practice forgiveness in eternity. There is no offense in perfection. You cannot learn surrender in eternity. There is no chaos to release. Time was your workshop, your training ground, your opportunity to become, and you used it to build monuments to yourself that could not survive the transition. This is the unbearable weight you feel now, not the absence of what you built, but the presence of what you became. If you became patient, that patience is now your eternal nature. If you became humble, that humility is now your eternal posture. If you became forgiving, that forgiveness is now your eternal freedom. But if you became bitter, controlling, proud, and hard, that is your eternal prison. Not because I locked you there, but because you built it yourself. Brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day. You constructed a soul that cannot hold light, and now you stand in the darkness of your own making. This is not cruelty, this is consequence. The natural result of rejecting every opportunity to become. You thought you were building security, but you were building separation. You thought you were protecting yourself, but you were isolating yourself. You thought you were proving your worth, but you were denying your need. And now, in eternity, where there is no more time to change, no more chances to choose differently, you face the result. What you built is gone. What you became remains. And if what you became was nothing but achievement, ambition, pride, and control, then you are left with nothing. Because none of those things can exist in eternity. They require time to maintain. They require others to validate. They require performance to prove. And in eternity, there is no time, no audience, no stage. There is only reality. The reality of what you truly were beneath all the performance. And if beneath the performance there was nothing, then nothing is what remains. This is the truth I tried to show you in every moment of your life, that the externals do not matter, that the life you build will not last, that only what is internal, only what is eternal, only what is real will survive. But you did not want to hear it. You wanted comfort. You wanted success. You wanted control. And so you spent your life chasing things that could never satisfy you. And now you stand in the eternal echo of that choice. Not because I condemned you, but because you chose condemnation over transformation. You chose pride over humility. You chose control over surrender. You chose the life you could build over the soul you could become, and now the life is gone, and the soul you neglected is all that remains. This is the final truth, the eternal reality, the unchangeable consequence. What you built cannot come with you, but what you ignored will define your eternity. If you ignored patience, you will exist in eternal restlessness. If you ignored humility, you will exist in eternal isolation. If you ignored forgiveness, you will exist in eternal bitterness. If you ignored surrender, you will exist in eternal struggle. These are not punishments I impose. These are realities you created. By choosing what to value, by deciding what to feed, by determining what mattered, you shaped your eternity while you lived in time. And now that time has ended, the shape is set, permanent, unchangeable, final. This is not the future. This is your present. You are already standing in the result. And the question that burns is not what will happen. It is what have you become. And the answer, whatever it is now eternal.